Hello, everyone, and welcome to the check-in. Today, we're delighted to be joined by Mr. Louis Andrews, the CEO of OVO Network France. Louis, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good. I'm glad that the two people that can speak English and not French are hidden away in a booth somewhere. Very impressive. At least you're keeping yourselves busy.
That's not true. I've had at least 3 conversations all day, actually. 2 of them with Damian.
Okay.
Two of them with Damian. Louis, great event. Really busy, really buzzing. You're a scale regular. I see you around the world.
I'm wondering if am I the person that's spoken at the most scales?
I think Mark Simpson is up there with you. Richard Wharton possibly
Yeah.
as well. But
Yeah.
No, you've got to try and knock Mark off his pedestal, haven't you?
I think we counted and I'm ahead of Mark, but
There you go. But not Wharton.
Don't quote me
Not
on that.
Wharton.
I'm not sure because I've got the quality of being able to speak in 2 languages, of course, which
Yeah.
does give me a bit of a leeway.
Not that you like to mention it, but there you
No,
go.
no,
Yeah.
well, you brought it up, so kind of.
So you are a regular at scale. Obviously, there's something that keeps you coming back for more. What is it about the conferences that you like?
Well, I keep on being invited back to talk, which obviously means that I get in for free, which is really a good way to make sure that I attend. And then I can bring my team over to join me as well. I think actually the team element is really interesting because we operate outside of the French Alps in a fairly remote destination where you don't get that many. Obviously, you get a lot of tourists coming through, but you don't get that many industry specialists coming through and an event like this is one that allows us to show some of our team members this is actually what the industry is like. I mean, as an example, one of the 4 people that's accompanying me here today, Elsa, she's only been with the company for 3 months. And so it's kind of very much her first industry event where she's like, oh, this is what the short-term rental industry is like. Whereas before this, she worked at the Paris Olympics. So it's kind of educational for the team. Obviously, we're now at a stage where obviously it's also about catching up with your peers. And yeah, kind of discovering new subjects, but it's all a lot of fun.
Louis, you joined us in Manchester 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Another busy show that was.
Yeah.
Tell me what for you are the kind of defining differentiators, if there's such a word, between say British short-term rental culture, French, and maybe the energy that both individual shows have.
Yeah, good question. It's massively different, in my opinion. Obviously, we're in France, but I'd actually say that I think what the UK and the English one benefits from is that it's more international, right? So in the French events, it's France. And obviously there's a lot of regulations, legislation. There's kind of a whole history of rentals and tourism in France that's very different to other areas in the world, which I think means that sometimes I actually feel a bit of frustration that some of the Frenchies just stay within Frenchies because they can't speak the language, so it's understandable. But they can't kind of go outside of that comfort zone and discover what it's like in other countries, because I actually feel like a lot of the subjects that are becoming quite redundant here, we've actually already found answers to elsewhere. So I think the biggest difference is more the fact that the English speaking one's obviously more international, which is why I love Scale Barcelona, for example. It's coming back, a bit of teasing, but yeah, I think it's massively different. Like it's almost incomparable in my mind, these two types of events. And a quick concrete example is, you can have the highlight for me at Scale UK was Jessica Gillingham and Steve Schwab's fireside to close out day 1. I took so much from that 30-minute conversation that so far I've been here, it's 3:00 and nothing's come close yet here. And that's because you rely on one person frequently or 2 people. And that's kind of the magical moment that you look to create. That's the magical moment that I aspire to create when I'm on stage as well. But massively different, but still lots of various things to learn from the different countries as well.
And for our audience who don't know who OVO Network are, good moment. Tell us a bit more about the business and sort of how deep your roots are in the French market.
Yeah. OVO Network's a business that was founded in 2008, so the same year that Airbnb was founded is the statistic that I always give. So at a time when the industry was totally different to how it is now, because most people saying that we do Airbnb, basically. So obviously our business has become, and our industry has become synonymous with that singular company. We operate around 225 chalets in the French Alps. So unique chalets, authentic destinations is how we describe them. For an average capacity of 10 people, often with extra amenities like a swimming pool or a jacuzzi and things like that. Our average occupancy year-round is 50%. Interestingly, right now, we're actually performing better in August than we are in February. So we're not just a ski destination. We obtain around 75% this year of our direct booking value comes direct through our own website. Just a nuance there between value and volume, because obviously we don't really care about the number of volumes of direct bookings. It's all about the value that we generate, right? Especially when you charge a distribution fee on your own platform, for example. So we've kind of become a leader within the sector, I think. On a European level, I think right now we've got a fairly good image, a fairly well-recognized brand. I'm still loving it. Nothing to sell at these events. It's just all around, all about sharing, basically.
Louis, despite clickers not working in Manchester, obviously you spoke about direct bookings. You're hosting On Direct tomorrow, again focusing on direct bookings. You've just spoken about that, but perhaps just share one key tip for anyone listening in terms of getting direct bookings. Perhaps something that's a bit out there, a little bit different to how people might normally see direct bookings.
I think more and more, actually, people are waking up to one thing that is highly important for all of us that are trying to attract more direct bookings. Interestingly, it's actually been talked about more this morning in different sessions this morning than I think it's been talked about at any other type of event that I've been to recently. And that's brand. And obviously, it goes back to one of our strengths is the fact that we feel like we've got a strong brand. And brand doesn't mean a logo, it doesn't mean a slogan. It's who you are. It's your identity. And obviously, I'm more of somebody that believes in that. But we've got a real approach that's all around quality above quantity. Okay, and then when I'm saying unique chalets in authentic destinations, that means that we've got a very targeted niche. So therefore, one way to get more direct bookings is identifying what your niche is and then marketing your brands and your offering and your positioning around that niche to create your own USP, your own unique selling proposition. So I think all of those things are key, and it's all about identity. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to be a poor man's Airbnb. You don't want to have a huge variety of different properties in a variety of different locations for a variety of different guests. You want to be quite targeted, because then you can be a big fish in a small pond rather than being a small fish in a bigger pond.
I think that's right. I think that you, as a business, you've done very well at attaching yourselves to a certain type of holiday, which is in the mountains, but smart enough to see that in the mountains, let's say it means August as much as it means February.
Exactly.
A buddy of mine stayed with you guys because him and his family are all cycling nuts. So they just love, which I never really understood. They prefer cycling up the hill than rolling down the hill, which is always the best bit, right? That's the best bit. You just tolerate the hill to get to the fun bit of going down it. Anyway, and they came and stayed with you guys, had a wonderful time. Do you feel that with AI in the position it's in at the moment, where it is heading, it's a sort of meet the moment time for niche providers?
Define meet the moment.
As in, you've already got a fantastic track record when it comes to direct distribution, but it feels now that in this age of the LLM trying to find the most relevant content for the person who's asking for it, being in a niche gives you an advantage over the OTA where it hasn't before, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's where, it goes back to the leisure market versus the urban market. And I think that as a whole sector and as an industry, the leisure market is in a much stronger position than the urban one. You can look at that by the percentage, for example, of direct bookings across the whole industry, where the urban market is managing to obtain around 3% and the leisure market is managing currently to obtain around 30%. We're at 75% again this year, so that's really positive and we're happy about that. But it also then goes back down to authenticity. And I think that more and more when you're scraping, it goes to identity and authenticity. So when the large language models and the AI bots and everything like that are scraping all this content, if you're just saying the same exact thing that all your peers are saying about your own business and about your destination, things like that, well, yeah, it's not going to push you forwards because you're the same as likely a larger fish. So it again goes back to that small pond. But I think you're right. We're fairly positive about our positioning, but every single person at this event 95% are behind with regards to AI. And I think it's a real danger, particularly the main danger that I've identified and I talked about on stage at Manchester is the fact that we're competing. Right now, you're saying AI as in somebody's going to go on ChatGPT and say, I'm looking for a unique chalet in an authentic destination where you're going to come up. Fine, if they're using ChatGPT. But obviously, the OTAs are trying to integrate AI at the same time. And it's going to be a battle between the OTAs, ChatGPT, Google. And then the other warning that I was giving last week was around the PMSs as well. That's more of a owner problem than a guest problem, but the owners more and more with all these PMSs integrating AI. As property managers, where do we sit within that? Because quite soon we're going to be replaced by the PMS that can just automate everything for the owners themselves directly. And therefore, what is our role? And hopefully it's not just to become glorified cleaners.
Yeah, and take that a step further. The bigger the PMSs get, the more chance of them being able to strike some sort of deal with a ChatGPT, with a Google Gemini around distribution.
The example that I gave in Manchester was this year, we lost one of our best performing owners. She was at 170,000 euros GBV annually. So really, really high performance. And she left us for a PMS. And just because the PMS targeted her, like she was very much actively poached by that PMS and told, no, come with us. We'll just automate the whole thing for you. You can go onto your dashboard, click a few buttons, and she was promised the same result. So what will be really interesting is to see whether in a year's time, which is usually what happens when people leave us, they come back knocking saying, actually, I took a gamble. It's not paid off. Can I come back? But it's a real danger, I think, for a lot of people here, especially when they're not clear on what the extra value that they're providing to owners is, because in that case, they're replaceable.
So I guess in 12 months, we'll find out if they came knocking.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the nuance of managing property in France. Do your guests, what are guest expectations typically? And do they differ by season? Is your ski guest more expectant than your cycling guest in the summer? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't speak for the whole French market. I can only speak for the mountains. The expectations, I mean, we've got around 70% of our guests are French. After that, they're from the UK, then Benelux, but a large majority are French. Obviously, there's a lot of domestic travel in France, which is good. I think the French, what's good as well is that going back to the type of property that we work with, we only work with properties that warrant 5-star reviews. That's kind of one of the things that are frequently said at these types of events, is that we're very selective in the type of property and the type of owner that we integrate to our portfolio. With regards to guest expectations, I mean, you know, we managed to have, I think, our guest net promoter scores 76, which is really, really high. We're really proud of that. But interestingly, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a difference between summer and winter, apart from the fact that obviously, you know, there's different activities that you can do whilst you're on holiday, because obviously in winter, you're mainly coming to have usually a ski holiday. Though bearing in mind that the information that I have from a lot of the ski rental shops is that whereas before people used to arrive and rent skis for a whole week, for example, or for a whole day, now what they're seeing more and more is people renting skis for one morning and then in the afternoon having the walking shoes, because basically it's switching. They're starting to ski less. Is that down to the snow conditions being worse and worse? I don't know. But one little bit of information that I find really interesting is that our highest rated winter in terms of guest reviews was the winter during COVID when the lifts were shut. And interestingly, because I think it was during the COVID period and people could escape from these urban destinations in Paris and leave their, 50 square meter apartment to go somewhere like our type of chalet with their families and things. And there was so much happening at the chalets themselves, because saunas, jacuzzis, swimming pools and things like that. They basically just were happy and spent more time at the property. And because the properties are excellent, they had a really nice time.
The first time I came across your company, this was a mention at a conference. I can't remember which one, but whereby you guys came up as one of the, if not the highest property management company on Airbnb. The highest.
Yeah, it was the, so I'll tell you which. This is at VRWS.
It's about 3 or 4 years ago.
Barcelona. By Sarah.
Okay. Segue.
Ah, there you go.
So a bit of a full circle moment. Yeah, by Sarah on stage.
How have things kind of developed since then? Do you still maintain those high scores? I think it was like a 4.8 something that you maintained.
It goes like this, but which, you're trying, we've still got the Superhost label. We're still guest favorite. We've still got fantastic relationships with Airbnb, and we're allowed to maintain those because Like, I love Airbnb. They do a fantastic job and a way better job than most people. And the problem is that most people have this love-hate relationship with them because they're dependent on them. Whereas we love them because they obtain around 50% of our bookings, and we like to have a good mix of distribution channels, and they're a really good distribution channel, and their team is fantastic. But yeah, we've managed to grow. You know, I think back then we were probably at 130 properties. Now we're at 220, but we've seen no real drop in quality or in guest reviews or guest responses at all.
Let's talk about the health of the market. Let's say the ski market in Europe,
Yeah.
or the mountains in general. We obviously had a crazy wild time post-COVID, where everyone was just, as you mentioned in your previous answer, was so happy to be out of their apartments around the world, and that was a global trend. Obviously, then we've struggled a bit. We've struggled a bit after that. Where would you say Europe is now? Where would you say France in particular is now? On the up, or still a challenging time?
No, I'd say still a challenging time. Obviously, there's loads of things that are going on in the world right now that make people kind of unsure about traveling. You know, the French government's just released some information around what things to have in your home in case of a national disaster. You know, packs of water and biscuits and tinned goods and all that. So I think it's quite a complex time that we're living in, really. Going back to your point though, with regards to the post-COVID, we definitely identified a post-COVID boom in the fact that obviously there was a huge spike in demand, which then generated a huge spike in supply. I mean, in terms of numbers in our region, the number of listings in Airbnb in 2019 were at 38,000, and today they're at 75,000 approximately. So it's almost doubled basically in about 5 to 6 years. The problem is that supply has boomed thanks to the demand that was originally made kind of artificially by the COVID lockdowns and no longer exists. So what you're seeing the supply is continuing to go up. The demand is starting to plateau. And that's why I think it's really interesting for professionals like ourselves, because again, it goes back to, okay, what added value do you provide both to guests and owners? Because actually the market's becoming more and more saturated, and you need to be able to stick out from the rest of the other actors.
It also makes me think about another area of this, which is the mountains can only fit a certain amount of skiers on them before they just become unskiable.
Yeah.
Not to mention the ecological damage of having that many people. Are you seeing that? You seeing that play out?
Yeah, and it's something that we're really trying to talk intelligently about with all the local actors. So to give you an example, we were in resort last week. We're going to be in resort next week. And we're having these in-resort events, basically, where it's very nice for the team because we get to stay in an OVO Network chalet for a week, so that's fantastic. But then what we do is we hold events, usually on the Tuesday evenings, where we invite not just our owners, but the tourism boards, all the local shops, restaurants, and things like that. And that's what allows us to make sure that, given the fact that there's dwindling snow conditions and stuff, and, other impact, things that have real impact, we're managing to kind of not control the narrative, but at the very least be heard, and not just say, oh yeah, there's more and more over tourism going on and we're responsible for that and it's our fault. We're managing to avoid that.
Louis, conscious we won't keep you any longer. Thank you. Looking forward to En Direct tomorrow.
How about we?
And we will see you at a scale event very soon.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Louis. Bye-bye.